one more quickly on Gaza. So Jake said he thinks the ceasefire deal may be near. We've obviously heard that before.
And Jake said we've heard that before, and we haven't always been able to get it across the finish line. We're being pragmatic about this.
I know, but I mean, what, how are the circumstances different now? What dynamics could be different that would actually make a deal happen?
That's a great question. I think if you're Hamas right now, which is still fairly a rudderless organization, and you look at the world today, the options aren't good. Your military capabilities have been all but decimated. Your main leader is gone. The leader of your buddy Hezbollah, he's gone. Nasrallah is gone. Hezbollah is now in a ceasefire arrangement, which is still holding with Israel. And Iran is not coming to the rescue. There is no cavalry for Hamas right now. So this is the time, and I think that's what Jake was alluding to. There has been an awful lot of pressure put on anybody who is supporting Hamas, and now given where they are and how weakened they are, this is the moment to make this deal, and that's why I think Jake believes that we're getting close. I mean, this is a great opportunity right now to do it.
Thank you, Greg. Just to follow on Gaza, in those comments in Jerusalem earlier today, Jake Sullivan said that the posture of both Prime Minister Netanyahu to do a deal and the posture of Hamas at the negotiating table in the wake of the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon had changed favorably toward a deal. I'm just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on that dynamic and what he's referencing.
Well, it's kind of my answer to Andrea. I mean, the situation for Hamas has radically changed, particularly because of what's happened. And I would add, one thing I didn't add was events in Syria, because now Assad's gone. And who was Assad's main backer? Iran. Iran was not only unwilling, but unable to come to Assad's rescue. It's just more proof, or should be more proof, to Hamas leaders that there is, as I said, no cavalry coming to the rescue. So they're at a moment of weakness and desperation. This is the time to make this deal and move forward on it. Now, whether they'll do it or not, as Jake said, we can't be certain. But we believe there's an opportunity here, a moment, and that's why Jake's in the region.
On Syria, the U.S. has stated that one of its primary goals is to make sure that ISIS does not reconstitute there. In the days since the Assad regime has fallen, have you seen any information or any intelligence about cells or larger groups that are trying to exploit this opening?
I'm not going to get into too much on the intel side. I'll just tell you that we're watching this real closely, and that is a risk, that is a worry, that ISIS, this is a group that loves ungoverned space, and you can expect, we have to expect, that they're going to look at what's happening here with the fall of Assad, and now Russia or Iran not coming to the rescue, Russia now also not coming to the rescue, and Russia's worried about their own presence in Syria and how that's going to look. You would expect that a group like ISIS would try to exploit that. So we're watching it closely. I don't have any, again, additional intelligence indicators to speak to today, but it is something we're laser focused on.
And then just broadly on foreign policy, there is only one president at a time, but we've seen the president-elect wade into his preference for what the U.S. does or doesn't do in Syria, the U.S. approach to Ukraine, to the Middle East, and now the transition is also, as you guys have said, working hand in glove as you push for a ceasefire in the region there. He's also inviting world leaders to inauguration. Is this having an impact on your foreign policy?
No. But I want to go back to your first question, though. The other thing I want to stress on this ISIS thing is that is why, and the president said this Sunday, the concerns about ISIS is exactly why that mission in Syria, the U.S. military mission, and the partnership with the SDF is so important, and why we want to see it continue.
Two questions, one on Bangladesh, then on India. On Bangladesh, over the past few weeks, several Hindu-American groups across the country have been holding protest march, one outside the White House over the weekend. They're protesting against the continued killings of Hindus and the temples in Bangladesh after the fall of Sheikh Hasina government. Is the president aware about it? Did he raise this issue when he met his friend and the interim government chief, Muhammad Yunus, on the sidelines of the UN?
We're watching this very, very closely, and the president's following events closely as well. The security situation in Bangladesh has been difficult following the ouster of the former prime minister, and we've been working closely with the interim government to enhance the capability of their law enforcement and security services to deal with the challenge. We've been very clear in our engagement with all Bangladeshi leaders The protection of religious and ethnic minorities is absolutely critical, and the leaders of the interim government have repeatedly committed to providing security to all Bangladeshis, regardless of religion or ethnicity. We want to hold them to that.
And on India, as the president concludes his 4-year term, what do you think are the key achievements of India-U.S. relationship?
The president is very proud of the way in which our bilateral relationship with India has transformed during his administration. I mean, we've elevated the Quad now, the Indo-Pacific Quad. I don't know how many meetings he's had now inside the Quad and bilaterally with the Prime Minister. There's an awful lot in our relationship that has improved military-to-military communication and defense security partnerships there in India and in the Indo-Pacific writ large, people-to-people ties, economic ties. I mean, there's been an awful lot.
Follow up on India. You mentioned about Quad. What is President's expectations from the coming administration on Quad and other IMEC?
That's going to be up to the incoming administration. It's going to be up to them to determine how they leverage the Indo-Pacific Quad. We can only speak to the ways President Biden has.
The bipartisan support to the India-US relationship.
Do I expect?
India-US relationship has been a bipartisan support, right? So both the sides have supported.
I don't see anything in the future which would indicate a change in that. There has been strong bipartisan support for growing this bilateral relationship, and I would expect that will continue.
Hey, John.
Oh,
yeah. President-elect Trump last night named a new director for the Voice of America, Carrie Lake. Do you think that the president has the authority to name a new director of that news group?
I understand that there's. I actually don't. You know what? I think I should take the question because I don't understand enough about the process there to really weigh in on that. So why don't we take that question?
Can you just react generally to the fact that this is a nonpartisan agency and Carrie Lake is someone who just ran a Senate campaign? Just any reaction to the fact that
I'm just not going to get into casting judgments on names that the president-elect is putting forward for various jobs. That is for him and his team to speak to. What I can tell you, President Biden and this entire administration, and that includes me personally, great respect for Voice of America and the work that they do here and around the world. We respect that. They have an editorial independence, which I think is absolutely vital for them to be able to do their job credibly. If you're going to have the name Voice of America on your bumper sticker, then you can expect that certain people around the world may look askance at that. But the fact that they are editorially independent and do good, solid reporting on their own, I think speaks volumes about how valuable they are to making sure that the proper news and context and information gets to audiences around the world. I'm very proud of them.
Hi, thanks, John. At the top of your remarks, you talked about the administration's commitment to an independent and sovereign Syria. And of course, Israel has sent its forces into the buffer zone adjacent to the Golan Heights and apparently beyond it. The presence of foreign troops would seem inconsistent with an independent and sovereign Syria. So will the administration pressure its ally to withdraw those troops?
We are in discussions with the Israelis, as you might expect us to be, about their operations there inside that buffer zone, and staying in close touch, as Jake did today, with better understanding what their goals and objectives are. I would tell you, I would point you to what they have said, which is this is a temporary measure to deal with exigent circumstances, and we recognize what they recognize, that there are some legitimate threats that they're trying to.
Have they given any indication what they mean by temporary, given that they've been, in occupation of the
I think
Golan
I'd
Heights
point you to the
since
Israelis to
1967?
speak to their military operations.
Thanks, Kareem. John, on the drones, does the U.S. government have any of its own imagery or video of these systems?
I'm not aware that we have U.S. government produced imagery ourselves, but as I said in my opening statement, we have certainly done thorough analysis of the existing imagery.
Like from people's cell phones that we're seeing? Basically, with what you're looking at, how can you credibly tell people that there is no public safety threat, there's no national security threat, that there's no reason to believe that a foreign government is involved?
Because the analysis thus far, in an investigation that is ongoing, has not revealed any national security or malicious intent or criminal activity But, Jackie, I would remind you, we're at the beginning here, not the end. There's a lot more work to be done, and we're working closely with state and local authorities to gain more information. I would argue that we're moving pretty well here with a sense of energy to try to figure out what we can do to learn more about this. We're still in the middle of an ongoing investigation, and I'm up here explaining to you and letting you know what we know so far, what we believe so far. If information comes to light that changes that characterization, then my goodness, we'll be the first ones to let you know. But right now, there's just no indication that this is some sort of foreign malign activity or, in fact, even criminal.
Well, what I don't understand is, this has been happening since late November. I don't know that the law enforcement officials or residents in New York and New Jersey, or even the Democratic senators who wrote to Director Ray Mayorkas and the FAA administrator today would think that this has been handled with a sense of urgency. But that being said, has the President or the Secretary of Defense issued any guidance to NORTHCOM or military installations to act on these systems if they are deemed to be a threat in any way? And what's the benchmark for that determination?
So two thoughts. First of all, you're right, late November. It is now, the 12th of December. I think it shows that we're moving on with this, and we're going to stay on it. So I want to disabuse you of any notion that we're not taking this seriously, because we are. I can also tell you that if the President, as Commander-in-Chief, believed, based on the information that he'd been given, that there was a national security threat at play here, or even a public safety threat at play here, he would issue the appropriate directives to not only law enforcement, but perhaps even the military if that was needed. I want to go back to something I said at the top. There has been no evidence of any of this activity in or near restricted spaces.
That's not what the senators said in the letter. They said, in fact, that they've been observed maneuvering their critical infrastructure, sensitive locations, including reservoirs and military installations, and cited a concern from law enforcement about public safety threats because a medevac helicopter was prevented from transporting a seriously injured patient for care because of the presence of these drones.
I stand by my opening statement.
Can you make that make more sense? Because I think people in New York and New Jersey see drones the size of an SUV over their house every night and think that that doesn't make any sense.
Certainly I understand why people would be looking at this and being concerned about it. We're concerned about it too, which is why we have the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, my goodness, looking at this. And we're taking it seriously. We understand that people are concerned. We understand that they got questions. We got questions too. And we're working hard to get the answers to that. What I can tell you as we sit here today, at 2:16 in the afternoon on the 12th, is we haven't seen any indication thus far that there's a public safety risk, and we haven't seen.
The government know what they are.
We are still investigating this. I can't tell you definitively. I cannot characterize for you definitively what these sightings are. I can just go back to what I said at the opening. We've looked at the imagery. We can't corroborate some of the reported sightings through our own expert analysis using sophisticated detection techniques, but that doesn't mean that, we're putting our pen down here this afternoon and calling it a day. We're going to keep at this.
What are you doing, though?
We are continuing to investigate it, as I said in my opening statement, 2 federal agencies, as well as the United States Coast Guard, and state and local law enforcement officials, which we are staying in close touch with.
Picking up on drones, has it reached a level, or is there a level determined by which the President or the administration, more directly, would prohibit any use of the airspace, since it is regulated, for drones for a period of time to try to figure out who they are and to remove this anxiety that people in the Northeast are feeling?
I don't know that we're at a stage right now where we're considering that sort of a policy option. But I can tell you that we're going to keep an open mind here. And I think whatever policy options we determine are appropriate will be informed by the investigation. And thus far, in this early stage of the investigation, there's just no national security threat that we see and no public safety risk. So again, you want to be careful that you don't you don't jump to conclusions and you don't jump to policy options that may not be appropriate at this particular stage. But we'll obviously see where it goes, and we'll be informed by investigators.
One other topic, with Jake in Israel and issues related to Ukraine and Russia, the Middle East, and so forth. With 40 days to go, do you feel that the Biden foreign policy team is in a cooperate with a very vocal president-elect who is talking about these issues to achieve the aims that you have, or do you view it as this is only your negotiation to have, whether it's in Israel, whether it's with Ukraine? Is it coordination, competition? How would you describe?
I would say consultation. We are keeping the incoming Trump team fully aware and read in of not only what we're doing, but what we're thinking about doing, so that there's nothing they should see in the public domain, nothing I'm saying here, nothing Jake said in Israel, that would surprise them, that we're keeping them fully informed.
And has the president or members of this administration asked the president-elect to pull back from public statements or phone calls or anything that might impinge on what you're trying to do?
Not that I'm aware of.
Final question.
What do you make of reports that were out today that Austin Tice was seen alive in a prison in Damascus in 2022?
I think I've answered this before. I just don't have, I've seen that press reporting. I don't have any information to verify that reporting, and I certainly don't have anything today that gives us a sense of his whereabouts right now.
I'm asking, though, because the Israelis bombed that facility over the weekend, and so I'm wondering if there are any conversations with the Israelis about, maybe avoiding targets where Austin Tice or other prisoners might be held.
We're, as I said earlier, it's a full court press to get more information about Austin, and we are actively in touch with interlocutors and counterparts throughout the region, and that includes Israel.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Corinne.